guest today, Jack Eydlish, initially trained as a pharmacist and has somehow ended up Joint General Manager of Maltra Foods, a proudly Australian-owned food and beverage contract manufacturing business. Maltra started in the mid-90s when Jack's dad fortuitously partnered in a business providing drinking chocolate and chai powders to cafes around St Kilda. Today, 27 years later, Jack and his brother Roman run the business, which is over 100 staff, manufactures thousands of products in Victoria and Queensland, and still caters to the cafe business, but also partners with some of the world's leading retail and food service businesses. Today, we're very excited to welcome Jack Eydlish, Joint General Manager of Maltra Foods, to the Coffee Lab.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we get stuck in, those of you who have joined us before would remember that I normally have Dave Burchett sitting next to me, but Dave is MIA today.
He's MIA.
Instead, I've got Chris Dodges sitting here. Chris, what are you doing here?
I'm filling in for David. He's not quite well. But anyway, I know Jack. I've known Jack personally for, it's been close to 20 years now, actually. So I decided to insert myself and give Dave a spell on the sidelines.
There you go.
And as fate would have it, he's actually home with a roaring flu or man flu, as I would like to probably say. But he's actually not well at all. So,
poor guy.
Well, there we go. Best wishes to Dave. But
best wishes. Get back soon.
And it's probably an upgrade, to be honest.
Yeah, no, gave him magic wand. So you wanted to take the interview.
Chris, of course, is a director of the OG Group, and so it makes sense for Chris to be here today. But, I mean, we did mention already that you two have known each other for quite some time. Who wants to take the first question? How did you two come to know each other?
You want to take that one?
I can take this one, yeah. So I joined the business, funnily enough, it's actually on my LinkedIn profile. It popped up as 20 years this week. So
At OG?
At the OG Group,
yeah.
So I joined, and shortly after that, Maltra Food being just up the road from where we roast in Mulgrave, Jack and their business has been a supplier for many, many years.
Yeah.
I think we were one of the early adopters.
Absolutely.
With and now my father-in-law and his business partner were dealing with Jack's dad. And a lot of these that sort of intergenerational where we sort of pass on. And supplies and relationships, sometimes it's not all about price. It's about quality and relationships, and that's sort of where we've sort of ended up where we are today in our sort of in our relationship. Being both from migrant families, my heritage is Greek and Jack's is Russian, so we sort of have that sort of
commonality,
ethos, the commonality, and sort of understanding where we come from as family businesses. So again, and that's sort of how we sort of met with Jack and his brother Roman.
So your business, OG Group, is now in its second generation, right?
Correct. Yes.
Your business is also in its second generation.
Correct, yeah.
Tell us about how yours was born and how you came to be here.
Well, it's a great story, a great long story, but it's quite memorable. I mean, as you alluded, my father ended up being a business partner with someone who needed an investment in their business. Along came Greg, who's my father, trying to help this gentleman out. His name was Marion Maltra at the time, and his leading product, which he was probably doing since the 60s or even the 70s, was cocoa-based beverages. So at the time, fortuitously, they met. And ever since that moment, Greg, my father's been producing such product where it's continuously evolved. So from, the passion is all about delivering good flavour and better ideas. And that's the mantra for Maltra Foods. And today we delve into a lot of different categories, but that's essentially how it started, the journey in that regard.
Is Dad still in the business?
He's still in the business, but I think, the days of him coming in on a daily basis have wavered, a bit like Chris's side of the family.
Yeah.
They need to take a time out, maybe smell the roses now.
They do always have the finger on the pulse, regardless. It's one thing you get with these older generation. They understand business. There's no textbook with them. They just got that sort of feel for it. Being sort of migrants and coming up, hard work is hard work, and they're always going to have the finger on the pulse. And it's my father-in-law's 85, and to this day he sits there and he talks about the price of coffee and what have you, and he's always got his opinion and this, that, and the other. So
how does he go with an Excel spreadsheet?
No, forget that one. Well, we've given him an iPad, so he's sort of he's getting himself around an iPad, but forget Excel. That just doesn't happen.
So Jack, were you? Was it always kind of in the stars that you would get into the business, or how did it come? Because you trained as a pharmacist, right?
Yeah, and I kept doing it part-time on a part-time basis, which I really loved and enjoyed. I think it gave me a good grounding and understanding formulations, and I think that's where the strength for the business, because we do have an R&D department. So it's an area where you have to create new products, and having that pharmacy background definitely helped. But I guess there's a passion and it drives you, and the passion for pharmacy kind of wavered a little bit, and the passion for the business and helping out. So no one put a gun against my head to be part of it, but I sort of fell into it and continued down that journey and trying the best that I can on this path.
Do you still? Sorry,
you go.
Do you still locum or no?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Yeah, still locum. Yeah, a little bit. So
What does that mean?
Well, it just means you got to do a fair amount of hours to qualify to continue to have a registration. So you kind of need to do it.
Okay.
So you need to have a certain amount of hours. So you continue to do that, but just the minimum hours allowed.
So, we might pop into a pharmacy and see you at the back.
Absolutely. Absolutely dispensing.
And when you first started, or maybe even now, did you ever get on the tools and mix stuff and measure and go, that works, that doesn't?
No, absolutely. If you look back, it all started, even my mum in the back, packing products. I can't believe that she actually did it, but she was a bit of a workhorse down there and managed to, you got to have a certain amount of products that you have to pack per minute, per hour, and so it was always on the pulse there. So even I worked in the back. So it's amazing that you have to sort of do those sort of things. I'm pretty sure Chris would have had to do the same thing at some part of his journey. So you have to do that, and you get on the tools and even concoct new recipes. Absolutely.
I love that image of the whole family kind of being involved. Have you got siblings? Obviously, you got a brother as well.
Yeah, I got a brother. In the first part of the journey, you sort of employ your relatives and cousins and second cousins. But I think as you sort of move along the journey, one of the things you do learn, you love having them part of your fabric. But ultimately, you got to widen that fabric and get people who are capable, as opposed to who you can trust as well. Convenient. It's always.
Well, it's true in saying that, because we had the sort of similar experience at the OG group. There was a lot of family involved early on.
Yeah.
And again, as you grow as a business, all of a sudden you've got to bring in your subject matter experts best suited to the role. And as much as you can rely on family, this, that, and the other, they're still family, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really hard to have a conversation with them saying, look, you're not cutting it. We've had to do that in our business. It's not a good feeling. But you've got to do what you've got to do, because if you're going down that sort of the pathway where you're growing as a business, you sort of got to sort of be able to have these discussions with people, and it's sort of it's an interesting path you take, but you've got to stick to it, and again you just got to plug in the right people, or what you think are the right people for the job that needs to happen.
Yeah. So what was your experience like when you were going through that phase of maybe not extracting might be the wrong word, but extracting yourselves from small family business to growing business? Like how was that path for you guys?
Yeah, I think if you take literature from the textbook, they always say get the best available, best applicants, and I think you probably don't learn that at the start. Pharmacy background, you don't have a business degree or anything like that, so you learn a lot on the job.
Yeah.
So that absolutely, I think fast forwarding where we sit today, you definitely have to get the best available. And I think you learn along the way, as opposed to trust, keeping things in secret. As you grow, you can't keep things in secret as much. So therefore, you just got to rely on making the right decisions in the best interest of the business. Yeah.
And did you and your brother came in at the same time and take over?
Yeah, pretty much. I came just before him, probably about 12 months.
Right.
And then he then came in, and then I actually left for a few years. But then he continued down that path, bringing some of the skill set that he had, which was operations side of the business.
How big was it then, and how big is it now?
We had about 15 staff. back then in early 1996, 97. So today, obviously, it's quite a few more than that. So it's a much more complicated business. It's quite dynamic and flexible. So that's also got its drawbacks. Also, so it's got its pluses. So yeah, it's significantly bigger business than what it was. So we'd just be proud to be associated with many of the partners that we've had over that journey, including the OG group. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you go balancing work with family? You know, like that's
not well.
Yeah. What's the dining table like on the weekend when you're talking shop, or you're trying to avoid it? Like
no, I try and avoid it. I think my wife is probably I think she probably close her ears somehow and not listen to it. But it's good to have good friends, good network of people that you can have that discussion with, that you can trust. So I think it's the best part of me and Chris's friendship as well, that goes beyond just the OG group. It's about having connection with some of the things that they may experience in their business and things that we may experience in our business. And it's about that banter that I think is invaluable to have.
Yeah, in adding to that, so Jack, I'll say this, lives, 4 houses down from where I am, and he moved in recently. It was about 6-7 years ago.
I don't think that's that recent. To
me. No, it isn't. It feels like it.
But in between us, there's a park. They closed off a street and they made a park. So they've built this little, call it is it a gazebo or a rotunda or something like that. So in summer we have our sessions there. So Jack walks down and I walk up, and we sit there and we solve the problems of the world. It's not necessarily just business, just general chit chat. So and there's a neighbour who joins us as well, another guy. Yakov. Yeah, so this guy is he's an interesting character. He's in his 70s and he's definitely got his opinion about everything. So and we can sit there and have sessions, and we just work through the problems of the world, and we can resolve them all there in this lovely little tranquil
in
park.
The gazebo. Yeah.
In the gazebo. So
from a business perspective, how important is that? Like having those sounding boards who are actually outside of your business?
I think it's paramount. I think everyone should have. I wouldn't call it. You should have a mentor if you can. Yep. It's definitely a big plus. And I think the other thing is to have that network of good people that you think you can trust, and also who can add a bit of value. And I think that's paramount in my opinion. So I think that's and not just it may not just be about work, but it's also about mindset and your capacity to be able to, like you said before, that life business balance in terms of having your personal. And I think that's really important as well, because I think we're in that next stage of when we get to our age, you got to try and get your mindset right. And I think having that network is really important.
But it's also a balance between, you spoke about work-life balance, and people talk about that now, and it's we get to that age now, like I'm in my early 50s, and you've got to start thinking, as much as doing the stupidly long hours you used to do as coming through your 20s and your 30s, you just sort of can't do that anymore. And as your business grows, you need to be able to plug in people to sort of allow you the time. And like Jack's also got a young family as well, so he needs to spend time with the family. It gives you the very good outlet. And I think this has probably come out of COVID as well, where people were forced to work from home, and then you sort of you extricate yourself and you realise that it's not all about work. And sometimes you've really got to find a sort of balance between what's good for work and what's good for the home life, because they say happy wife, happy life, right? So well, that's my mantra anyway.
No, it's a good mantra, mate.
And do you have any? It's a second generation family business.
Yes.
Any plans for the third generation to take over?
Yeah, well, I've got my son. He just turned 21, so happy birthday to him. He I think he loves the idea of business. But I've got he's doing some work for me at the moment in our business, a couple of days a week. So at least to get some understanding of how it works and how it ticks. So he's learning, and he wants to add value to his part of what he brings to the table. So at some point in time, if we're still around at that point, it definitely would be good to transition and help and get him involved. Yeah, absolutely.
We spoke a couple of episodes ago to Steve Blair from Ferguson Blair Bakehouses, and he said that his rule, or the rule in their business, was you got to go do 2 years working for somebody else. Do you subscribe to a similar mentality?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you learn a lot more outside than you do on the inside. Sometimes having that scope is paramount. So I think Absolutely. Minimum 2 years. I would actually add probably an extra 3 to that. 5 would
Make
be
it 5.
great. But it depends how old you are and if you're at that level where you can still do a lot for your own business as an owner or as if you really want to get out a little bit sooner, then yeah, you probably want him to know the ropes a bit sooner, and then at the same time try and give them the opportunity to have the right people around them to teach them. So yeah, I think minimum 2 years is probably where I would sit, up to 5.
And how, I mean, you obviously went and did the pharmacy thing.
Yeah.
What did your brother do? And then how do you kind of come back together with complementary skill sets, I presume?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're very, very lucky because his part, even though he can be a good salesman, he focuses more on the operation side of things. He'll focus on strategy, implementation of equipment. We've got a new site that we're building in Pakenham, which the amount of hours he has to put in for that has been extraordinary. So his skill set lies in that aspect of the business. My skill set doesn't lie there. My skill set is, dealing with people, building relationships, involved in research and development, some procurement, and also at the same time having some skill set in export, which we currently export to about 20 countries. So I sort of got involved in that aspect as well. So we try not to get involved in each other's sort of beds.
It's good advice. Before we go too much further, we haven't actually kind of covered off on what Maltra Foods actually does. Like, can you give us we know where you started in the sort of chocolate beverages, but like, what do you do now?
Yeah, so the business wants to deliver the best sort of beverages, both powder and liquid format, and food, so food and beverage areas. So today we basically involved in health and nutrition. So it's a really big part of our pillar. We've been doing this for over 20 years. Indulgence, what I mean by indulgence is hot and cold beverages. We're also involved in sweeteners, sweetener aspects, even ice creams, soft serve ice creams, both for food service and retail. So it's a big, in that aspect, we do both our branded products. Arcadia is one of our brands that we service both locally and export, as well as contract manufacturing.
Right. Okay. And what sort of products, like, is there something that we would recognize? I mean, Arcadia is obviously a pretty well-known kind of chai brand, yeah? So, I mean, what would I walk into Woolies and find that, are you allowed to tell me?
Well, from our brand, of course, if you go to Woolies or Coles, our chai is kind of our hero in the marketplace, and we do that retail. We've done it for almost 20 years. So if you go to the tea section of Woolies or Coles, you'll find that product sitting. We've got can, which is the orange can, and some sachets there that are sitting on the shelf. And in terms of most cafes, you'll see our product delivered through good distributors, both food service and the cafe industry. In terms of co-manufacturing, the only one that's listed on our website I can disclose is Chai Time has been one of our partners. Okay. So we do products with them, but all the other ones, you'll have to, I can't mention.
We'll talk about them later.
We'll talk about them later.
NDA, right? NDA.
NDA, and we like to keep confidential the relationships for our stakeholders as well as our partners.
Makes sense. Tell us about Arcadia. Like, how did that come about? I mean, if it's a 20-year-old chai product, I mean, I remember 20 years ago, I don't think there were too many chai products around. It probably wasn't being demanded too much in the market, but you obviously saw a niche.
Yeah, I think we talked about it before off air, didn't we, Tom? Yeah. I won't bore you with the story too heavily, but it came about. I went to a couple of customers, and I went in their warehouse, and I noticed this smelly thing through a poly bag that kind of had a very strong pungent smell. I asked the customer, "What is that?" They said, "It's chai." I looked at the label. The product came from the States. So fast forward, thought, well, there could be an opportunity. I asked them what the volume was. It was actually really negligible, very small volume. No one really knew what it was. So we needed to look at how do we educate the market. So fast forward 12 months, kept working on it. There was a few times where someone actually asked us to match a product that he wanted from the US. Unfortunately, we couldn't match it. And so we decided, after 12 months of research and development, produce something for the Australian market that doesn't exist. And that's what we did.
So you were first to market with your
In food service would be one of the, if not the first,
Yeah.
one of the early adopters of that product. So we needed to make a product that wasn't, that was easily, that could be tasted without being intrusive on the palate.
Yeah.
And that was really important because there's some products that are a bit intrusive.
Correct. Yeah.
And so what we did, we did something that's available for everybody. And that was the hero product that we created, and fast forward, hold a pretty high market share of that product. So that's how it all started, and probably one of the better things we did in our company that we could be proud of.
It's pretty much the dream, isn't it? Be first in your category.
Yeah, well, sometimes it helps, but absolutely. It helps to be first and helps to be the pioneers of something. So, but that was pretty special at the time.
Yeah, and you talk about bringing ideas to life.
Yeah.
What's that kind of process? Does a client come to you with their own idea and go, can you do this? Or do you kind of go to them and go, hey, we've kind of got this idea, like a bit of both? How does it work?
Great question. I mean, one of the things with chai, it was an idea that we brought to life. So we could go to the market and we could say, hey, we see this as the potential for you guys to make some money along the journey and be profitable, but also bring something to the consumers that they don't currently enjoy. So the other option is some people come to us with an idea, and can we bring it to life? Do we qualify? Do they need to buy a minimum order quantity to get on the books? And so from small to large multinationals or global businesses, we'll try and help. But of course, sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. So they've sort of got to qualify for a minimum order quantity to come on board.
Yeah,
It's not too dissimilar to what we do at Coffee Lab. We'll get private label customers coming and asking us to sort of create or match particular blends, and our quality department sort of goes away and works it out and this, that, and the other. But what we tend to find is sometimes you have recipes already done that you sort of set up where you can sort of sit there and saying, look, there's you can pick from 1, 2, or 3 in relation to coffee blends, and then and it's not necessarily bespoke, right? So that way you can get a sort of a financial advantage because it's not going to cost you as much, because if it's already in our wheelhouse, it's okay. But then what you tend to find with coffee is people want their own sort of taste and nuances and what have you. So we're happy to go down that path, but then it becomes it becomes a lot more expensive. But what you generally tend to find is customers will go and sort of buy what's sort of in your sort of wheelhouse. And again, sometimes it's all about, as much as coffee's coffee, it's about the branding that sort of sits behind the coffee as well. So and ultimately what we tell people is saying, if you promote your branding at a certain level, you'll get the quality's going to be there. It's all about more around the brand that sort of sits behind the coffee as well.
Yeah. So you started with chocolate beverages.
Yes.
I'm assuming there's a few more things in the wheelhouse now. Like, what are you making now?
Yeah, so today we from the Cafe Society space, we love that space. Been really great for us. So we one of the big core objectives is to be really well known for syrups and sauces and purees as one of the big opportunities for us. So we actually have a library of probably almost 60 syrups, some of which already exist, some of which we'll launch in the next 12 to 18 months. So that's a big pillar for us, not just locally but overseas. We see a big opportunity for that for our business. So that's going to be something that we'll be focused on as a big hit for us.
And how did you go from a handful of products to now thousands of products? Like, was it something that you did by design, or it kind of just happened organically? What was that journey like?
Yeah, it's always a great question. I think, like with anything, you sort of start with an opportunity products, and then you want to expand it. So you expand it so that you can fulfill some sort of need in the marketplace. So we try and tailor the solution, not just for what we think should sell, but what we should think that solutions for the industry types are. So you try and find, are there trendy products? Are they here to stay? And we'll work through that methodically and then fill that gap. So it could be in any space. It could be nutritional space. It could be in the cafe space. It could be in the baking space. So we try and actually even do trends and create new recipes for customers and give them what we think is the next opportunity for them. And if they want to come on board and take them, then we do that.
Was there a moment where you were sitting in a room doing a deal or getting something across the line where you went, how did I end up here? You know, you pinch yourself a little bit and go, wow, this is a bit, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you should reflect. I think in any person who has a business, who has some hard times, because you have a lot of adversity that will be thrown your way, and then you have to seek perspective on that. At the same time, reflection is good, not just for the business, but also for your own self personal gain. So yeah, you do that, and I have to admit there'll be times where you pinch yourself and go, "Wow, we did a remarkable job." Even though during the everyday, it's a challenge. Chris probably knows that I don't think there's a day where things are always smooth. And they're always difficult. And I think pinch yourself and be really proud of the industry that you're in and be thankful for it as well. So absolutely.
And having said that, as a business owner, what we tend to suffer, and I don't know, and I'll ask you the question, is chasing the win and the goals.
You're always going for the next one, aren't you?
You're always going for the next one. Do you get enough time to spend celebrating the victories, the small victories? Because I personally, myself and my business partner, what's one thing that we sort of are mindful that we need to start doing more is start celebrating the victories. Do you celebrate your victories, or do you just sort of, all right, what's next?
No, you're right, and I think everyone is so busy these days that you do need to give a bit of airtime for that. And I think you could always celebrate much more. I think it's really important. What we do in our business is every quarter we try, or every half a year, we try and get not just the people in the office, but also people on the factory floor. You know, and that's a time for celebrating what we did in the last 12 months, making them aware of it. And I think that's really one of the things that most businesses should do. Do we do it great? We got to always, everything you can do, you got to work on continuous improvement. Can we do it better? But certainly I do with Chris. We need to celebrate those wins a little bit more. We had a little project which was really taxing on us, where we had to update all the labels with packaging. And one of the things that's most paramount is allergen warnings. So we need to make sure that all the consumers understand the allergen warnings, and you've got to try and get that right. Sometimes you can get it wrong, and it's really important. That's probably the biggest thing that you have to get right. And we needed to celebrate 6 or 7 months worth of work. So you need to then, what do you do? So you take them bowling, or you do something to commemorate the great work that they do.
And do you consciously work on company culture and business culture? Like, how does that work for you?
Yeah, I think you go around and telling jokes all day, you know, just make everyone laugh. No, look, you do. You need to keep working on the culture, and you know, it's easy. You know, sometimes passion can get the better of you. So sometimes people can have a higher pitched voice because of the passion that drives them. And I think you've got to be forgiving for that, especially in family businesses. So, you do have to drive a better culture and a better place of work, and forgive people for any errors, and also celebrate what they do well.
Yeah, we have a saying at work, we're not solving the problems of the world, we're just making coffee, right? So don't take yourself too seriously. And it leans to the culture, because ultimately if you're always going to be on top of people, and the expectations are there for them to produce and do their job, but ultimately you just got to enjoy what you do. And like I tell the guys at work, you spend a better part of your working life here, or your week, I should say, with us. And then what you need to be able to do is at least get along with people, understand people, have fun with what you do. And again, that's where the culture you try to find a balance. And I think having come from a corporate background, you tend to sort of see how they view culture via a textbook. And whereas small to medium businesses or family business, I tend to find is a lot better, because ultimately you're dealing with people who's got a family values at the core, right? But you're still running a business, so you understand your staff and their needs and what have you. So you try to do both. But again, you've also got to have fun with what you do, because ultimately, if you're not having fun, it's sort of like, well, why do it?
You having fun, Jack?
Oh, absolutely. We're having a fun interview.
Here we go.
No, look at the core of everything that you do. We do it all for the customer. So centrally doesn't matter at what level the customer is. Everyone has to have good intentions, has to deliver as best as they can. And I think that's really what's really important for any business. And I think that's the core for us as well, is have them at central in mind, try and do the best that you can and please as many customers as you can.
You talked about building a new site. You've got home bases here in Victoria, right?
Correct.
And there's another manufacturing setup in Queensland.
Yep.
Tell us about the different setups and what they're doing and what the new one's going to do.
Yeah, so in the Clayton site, we've got that focuses on anything with powdered format products. So we do that there to deliver those sort of products in different pack formats, from sachets to cans to composites to metal tins, all the way to jars. In Queensland, which is in Gold Coast, we focus on mainly syrups in 750, 1 litre, and we do sauces there as well as purees, but in different formats, even granitas, which is a 3 litre and a 2 litre format. So liquids is in Queensland, powders is in Victoria, Clayton, and then in Pakenham, we're just going to increase the capacity of the powdered space, which will allow us to do things hopefully a little bit faster for high volume products and give us more space. We don't have as much space in the factory for warehousing. So that's really as well one of the main reasons for the growth.
So will the Pakenham site be a 24-hour site, or is it plans for a sort of 24-hour site?
Oh, it'd be great to have a 24-hour site. Oh, well, yes and no. It comes with its challenges, but probably, you'd need a lot more work to make it 24 hours. I mean, currently we're doing 24 hours minus 5 in some days and some lines. So, it'd be great to have a 24-hour, but we're not quite there yet.
It's a really interesting point. You've got sort of 3. Firstly, I'll ask you, what was the thinking behind splitting the locations?
Oh, great question. Well, in 2018, we stumbled upon a business that was ready to sell. So we planted the seed with a particular person. He was fantastic. He called me up, said, "Look, Jack, I want to get out. Can you take over our business?" And that was our entree or entryway into syrups. So that was the right thing to do at the time. So it happened, the fact that he happened to be in Gold Coast is why we took it over, apart from loving that beautiful sunshine. I was going to say,
it sounds like it's a bit too convenient.
Yeah, a bit convenient, we a few mojitos on that beach there. But that was the reason why
Could
the
be worse
location.
places, right?
I know.
It's a beautiful place. So, the people are great as well.
And you get the,
get
added
the
benefit of commuting backwards and forwards every now and then.
Gets a bit steamy in summer, I can tell you that much.
You don't want to go there summer, right? It's more the winter getaway. But having said that, our August weather here in Melbourne has actually been quite pleasant.
Take it, absolutely. It's better than July was. July was horrible.
Correct.
Big operation, a lot of requirements. Where does how conscious are you of sustainability and practices and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. Sustainability for our business in all different pillars, starting from packaging. A lot of companies, especially multinationals, have a vision. The vision is by 2025 or end of 2025, they'd love to have sustainable packaging.
That's next year. That's like less than next year. It's like 6 to 12 months away.
Yeah. So we're working on a few of the options. In some of the options, we will get some equipment that'll be ready to be able to pack in the sustainable packaging. Sometimes it comes across real fast. So, you create a committee, which we've created a committee now to focus on sustainability. So we are wanting to have all the different streams of packaging to be sustainable, and with that comes complexity. When that comes, you've got to test shelf life of a product. Will it be able to? In Chris's case, he's going to make sure the packaging that he has for coffee, will it absorb any moisture? Is it going to? How long is it going to last? We send products to Asian countries. Will the heat in those spaces cake up the product, or what will happen? So they're the sort of things that come into play. So we are actively working on it, but you need to add resources to that, and that takes up time. So we're conscious and aware that that's our responsibility. So that's what we've got to aim to do as well.
Yeah. And I mean, the podcast is called Coffee Lab.
Yeah.
Where does coffee enter the conversation for you guys?
Uh,
Is that a question for
no,
Chris?
no, probably answer a question for Chris. I mean, we don't make coffee. We're good at making coffee beverages with coffee in it. Sorry, I should say, both in powdered and liquid format. So that's what our skill set is. But I guess for coffee, we love coffee. We love partnering up with people who make it. So we wouldn't want to compete against them in that space. So we try and sell ancillary items that marry up with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is the I mean, you've already talked about it from a sustainability perspective a little bit, but what does the next few years hold for Maltra Foods?
Yeah, I think we just got to continue to do things better. We got to continue to improve. We could be conscious of continuous improvement in our whole business, from how we deal with customers, look at the back end processes, warehouse management systems, ERPs, digital, online. I guess technology is becoming much more important. I don't know if Chris sees the same sort of thing in his business.
Well, we do actually, and it probably leads into you can talk about AI and how it's sort of affecting the industry we're in. I think the coffee industry as a whole generally is a bit tech averse, and it has been. Where what we're sort of seeing now with AI is actually sort of starting to filter through into sort of the coffee industry now, and sort of more around systems and doing things better. You talk about doing things better. Ultimately, it's about sort of adding value to your customer. And to Jack's point, the customers are important. How do you add value to the customers? And AI is actually providing a lot of that sort of, I guess, input into being able to do add more value through the customers through technology platforms, being through apps or doing through ordering cycles, basic product knowledge. So on the Coffee Lab, we've created a quality portal where customers can log in and sort of see where the coffee comes from and all the key indices that they sort of need. That is sort of that sort of AI sort of going to be driving a lot of that from the back end, what we sort of see coming forward into the industry. Doesn't necessarily mean jobs will go, because people look at AI and go, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. No one's losing their job. What tends to happen is you refocus and all of a sudden you're adding more value to your end customer, because the end customer still doesn't want to speak to a computer. Needs to have that sort of connection with the people within the business, and then ultimately you got to find that sort of that balance between the sort of customer interaction and sort of computer interaction or app interaction and AI. So that's what we sort of see where the industry is sort of coming. I don't know how much it's sort of affecting from your guys, but it'll be the same, because our industry is, as much as we're complementary. I need Jack, right, because my cafes need powders and they need syrups, right, and they need all the hot chocolates that Jack produces through Maltra Foods. So, and again, a lot of that sort of shared knowledge base. And again, once you start pushing through with with the sort of AI and the sort of backing, it's sort of the industry will evolve. We'll take that sort of next step.
Are you playing with the AI?
Actually, funny enough, I spoke to one of my colleagues the other day, and he came up with this amazing letter. And I said, mate, well done. You produced the most incredible letter. And I said, as a joke, I said, did you use AI? Oh, I did. so but of course you have to twig it a little bit. You have to adjust it slightly. But the letter was of it was quite high standards. So that just shows you where AI is.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I had one of the guys at work produced a letter, right? And he goes, oh, look what I've done. I've produced a letter. I said, okay, you didn't do this. What do you mean? Because I know how you talk, I know how you write. This is not you, right? And he goes, yeah. He goes, ChatGPT. I said, yeah, I thought as much. So, and I think it's got a way to go, because ultimately you still want to have that sort of personal connection. So if someone's getting a letter from Jack and all of a sudden it's written in a script and going, hang on a second, this is not Jack speaking. This is, you can sort of, you can figure out if it's sort of true or otherwise, or computer generated.
Yeah. But to your point about losing jobs, it's kind of not so much about that, right? It's like, you, as business owners, we kind of don't really have much choice but to embrace AI now, right? Like, it's not going away.
Correct.
It's an opportunity for us to make things better. So, I mean, I guess I'm curious as to whether you're thinking that way.
Oh no, absolutely. I think you do need to, and it can be as simple as having a program which is able to, like for example, Salesforce. I mean, how can you use that to your advantage? It's got amazing plugins. You know, how do you market through Salesforce to your customers if that's the platform you choose to use? So there's a lot of, and that's AI. I mean, that's tailoring the conversation with your customers. So I think that's really important. And I think, I know you mentioned something about the trends and what we see in the future and where we're going. And I think that's definitely part of the equation, but it's also about knowing what the consumers want, finding a few little gaps in the marketplace. And that's where we want to go in the future, to, you know, also innovate a little bit more.
Well, that's from the front end, right? Because if you think from the back end, if you speak to Roman, and we have spoken to Roman about this, from a production perspective, you use a lot of AI to all of a sudden streamline a lot of your processes, getting the information out. We've spoken about sort of, how do you get the best out of your people on the floor and the equipment, and you got to use AI and the sort of the technology that it's going to provide to be able to give you meaningful data where you can sort of sit there and go, okay, why am I running this where I should be running this? And all of a sudden you can sort of use your available resources to the best of their
maybe you don't need to go 24 hours.
Yeah,
correct. Maybe you can use 18 hours really well.
Correct.
Yeah,
and ultimately that's where you want to sort of drive to.
Yeah. Pretty much out of time.
Oh,
would you believe it or not? But
that was quick.
If you, I know, good though. Would you, if you could give your 20-year-old self some advice, what would you say to yourself?
Great question. Well, I'd say think with clarity. Look at solving problems by focusing on solutions, not the problems themselves. I would focus on telling yourself to surround yourself with really good people. Get staff that are capable of understanding your goals and objectives, who can be part of your inner sanctum. Be forgiving if you make errors. Enjoy the journey. Love the ride. And, challenge yourself along the way to get the most out of yourself and your colleagues. I think they're some of the things that I think I've learned.
I think 20-year-old Jack would be pretty grateful for that advice. It sounds like some pretty
good
advice.
Any other thing you reckon I should have said?
I think you pretty much covered it all, right? Yeah. So, look, you think as a 20-year-old, like your son, he just turned 21, right?
Yeah.
So you look at him through your eyes and thinking, what's his pathway, right? And ultimately, sometimes the experience, you got to go through the experience to, through the trials and the tribulations to be able to understand that you got to have that sort of clarity of purpose that you're sort of looking for in a job. I'll ask you another question, Jack. Here, what's the most important lesson that you've learned over your career?
He just gave us a bunch of them.
No. The most important lesson for myself, or just in general, for the business itself.
Just whatever works for you.
I think. The lesson is nothing's ever as bad as what it seems, and never as good as what it is. And I think just never sit on your laurels. Keep driving yourself, and try and not be too much like the Aussie dollar. You're going up and down with the way your emotional levels run, or the way the petrol is up and down. So just try and be, stable, as much as stable as you can be. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, that you've got to get that mindset right so that you can, as a business owner, be able to deal with both good times and adversity.
And if you could wipe the slate clean and start a completely new business tomorrow, what would it be?
I know what Jack would be. Anyway,
let him answer the question.
Well, you know what?
Joke, anyway.
They say that you shouldn't have any regrets in life, right? So if I had the journey again, apart from the learnings that I'd probably give myself, I'd probably I'd go down the same road that I've enjoyed in the last 27 plus years.
Right.
So even if I had to wipe the Clates lean, I'd still do what I'm doing.
Yeah. I was going to tell him be a tennis coach because Jack loves his tennis. So.
Yeah. If I could be, actually, being a tennis player, I love tennis and I love football. So I love singing too, but I'm crap at that. So
you've got a microphone. Do you want to give us a?
Yeah. No way, mate. I've embarrassed myself enough tonight.
No, you haven't.
Jack, thanks so much for joining us and for sharing some of your insights. Really appreciate it. And
thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate the time, and thank you.
All the best.
For being insightful. Thank you.